What's up, Bubby? Having a day?
I'm having a great day. But Doomsday got delayed.
Oh, did it? Oh, yeah, to like December or something, right?
Now, it's not multiple years, but it's not a year away. And that sucks.
It does, but also...
And you know what? I wouldn't have sucked so much if I didn't watch this movie.
Oh, why? Because the X-Men?
Yeah, it got me hyped again.
Mm.
How about you? You having a day?
I threw my back out. My geek space is a huge mess, and so it makes it stressful to be up here with books and boxes of things and finding the time and or motivation to clean it all up is...
And one of your best friends has something you want.
God, I want it so bad. Pull the snake out. Let me see it. Let me see it in work. Oh, that's so cool.
Vidi-gidi-bee.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another spectacular episode of the Sanctum Sanctorum Podcast, where comics and Christ culture collide. I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm the other one of your hosts, Joey.
And we are so happy that you've joined us yet again for an exciting movie. And
we're tickled that you're here.
it tickles me in ways I didn't know I could be tickled.
We're going to leave it right there. Moving on. Welcome. Where comics and Christ culture collide. Talk about...
Starting now that the awkwardness is over.
Right. Jump cut to this. Mm-hmm. We talk about comic book movies and find some good stuff, some bad stuff, some spiritual stuff, some other stuff. We got some new stuff in this episode we're really excited about. Mm-hmm. And as you can see from the title, we are covering 2003's X2, XMenUnited.
Yeah, so...
How old were you in 2003?
2003, I have to math here. 17?
Yeah.
17, 18, somewhere around there.
So I was 15. Yeah. It was a good time.
What a time. What a time.
My lights are going crazy over here,
I mean,
but whatever.
X-Men was in the movie theaters. Friends was just wrapping up. Blink-182 was all the rage, you know.
And The Fray just came out with How to Save a Life.
Oh, wow. What a time.
What a time.
What
a time.
A time. You know what? In 2003, we didn't even have all the Harry Potter books yet.
We didn't.
Oh.
And we had just gotten one or two movies.
We were in the process, I think, of getting The Prisoner of Azkaban around that time. But what I wanted to say quickly is that, you know, the movie is called, by my understanding, X2 XMenUnited. However, it is called other things all over the place, which I didn't know.
Huh.
It's also called X-Men 2, X2 only with no subtitle, XMenUnited with no X2 there. So there's no real complete consensus about what the official title proper is. But I'm a fan of X2 XMenUnited. That's the one that I like.
Is there a reason for that?
I think it might be for the same reason that we have, you know, the DC Extended Universe. Like, it was never officially called that, but it got adopted into the lexicon. And so then everybody just started calling it. So now everybody calls it that.
Right.
I think it was that kind of thing. Like, people in passing were like, oh, they're making... you know, X-Men 2, and then it was being called XMenUnited, but they needed to connect it to the first one, so I think it just kind of, everybody kind of picked their,
which we'll get to, but I
name.
think it should be XMenUnited with a question mark.
XMenUnited?
United? But before we dive into that, Chris, you got a culture moment for us?
I do. While we're on the topic of the X-Men, it was watching this movie that kind of gave me, an inkling of what we should talk about, and that's whether or not in movies or comics or something like that, when there is a character or team that is so deeply established as one thing, is it good or bad, helpful or not, to change those things? Now, what sparked this was, there was always jokes, especially in the early 2000 movies and superhero TV, everything was leather, So instead of like in the comics where things were, maybe cloth or Kevlar or other materials, all of the, X-Men uniforms are all identical. They're all black leather uniforms. We lost Cyclops in the blue, Jean Grey in the green, Wolverine in the yellow, Storm in the white, all that kind of stuff. But it got me thinking to, more drastically than that, where, the two characters that really come to mind are Captain America and Harley Quinn. Now, Captain America has always been, your true blue Boy Scout hero. He's akin to Superman. There's no moral ambiguity with Captain America. He's
got his colors,
ultimate
and that's
good
that.
guy. And then they did Captain Hydra, where, he was a secret Hydra agent. And I know that they found a workaround to that, but people were very upset of all the characters to turn heel, as it were. You
Right,
did it
that's
to
not the one you
Captain
do.
America. Now, on the reverse side, you have Harley Quinn, who was, the Joker's, aide de camp. His sidekick became a villain in her own right, and almost superseded her origins, but now is a member of the Bat family and is anti-hero to hero, definitely more heroic, but just a little chaotic with it. Now, you could say that for, both of these characters, and any character that goes through this, that, you need to grow a character and take them in new directions so they don't get stale. But do you feel like there are certain aspects or certain characters that you just shouldn't touch in regards to drastically changing who they are from how they were created to be?
I think when the story actually has something to say, then by all means, go for it. I think a lot of times it's just because we're bored and we didn't want to come up with something new, so we'll just switch sides and see what that character's version of their take on evil looks like, or their take on good and morality, and that's all good and great, but like, what's the story purpose? I sort of think of this with the upcoming Doomsday. We've been talking about this forever, right?
And we still have a year of talking about it to go.
Yeah, which as of today, now it got bumped back, and so we're going to be talking about it even longer. But this idea that now there's variants and different versions of these characters, and you're going to get the good versions of bad characters and bad versions of good characters, is like, okay, that's cool, and I get it, because you're getting an actor or an actress that we love in a role that we like seeing, but you're just going to change their moral compass. The problem is we fell in love with those characters because of their moral compass or their moral ambiguity. And so when you just decide that now this person, this character, this version is going to pursue a different level of understanding, what you're asking the audience to do is to fall in love with a new character, essentially. Now, that's not impossible. I think you can do it. I just don't recall seeing it done very well. I think there's just been a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, and a lot of time where people are just like, yeah, that didn't work. They don't remember those stories, right? Like, you think of certain comic lines, and it's not the one, like the ones that you can call to mind are not the ones where the character, flipped morality. It's the one where they were true to who they were and who you knew them to be. So I think if the story is aided in their swap, that's one thing. But if they're not, then I think it's just, it's sort of a cheap gimmick.
Yeah, I would agree that it can be kind of a cheap gimmick because I think it's done for I think it's done because, like you said, they feel like they don't want a character to get stale. But if you're writing strong material, then I don't think that a character needs to go stale. You know what I mean? And I'm all for development of a character, like natural development. We've seen this with Batman in the comics. We've seen it with Batman in the movies and TV as well. You see a very morally straight Batman. You see him a little more ambiguous, never breaking the killing rule, but always
Right.
sometimes willing to go further lengths than you might think is
But he's
okay.
but he's always Batman.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. You know what I think another example of where I didn't care for it was they did it with Hal Jordan's Green Lantern when they made him Parallax, and then they made him the Spectre, the host for the Spectre. That just didn't quite work for me because it didn't seem like for me it didn't seem like a natural progression of the character. And then they ended up bringing him back to who he used to be anyway. So it was like, so why did we take this weird detour? Because you wanted to like mix things up. Like that's what if and
I was
Elseworlds,
just gonna
that's what
say
that's for.
that's what
The
that's
what if
for.
comics in the
Right.
Elseworlds, I'm fine reading a 1 to 2 shot of what if Batman was a bad guy. Elseworlds, Superman is, like the Injustice storyline. That's definitely an Elseworlds thing where Superman
Right.
becomes a dictator and Batman has this underground thing. I think that those stories can be really fun and interesting, but when you make them into the true continuity and you say, this is the character I want you to know and remember now, I feel like that is done for gimmick. And we talked about this when we talked about, race swapping, gender swapping, sexuality swapping, all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It feels almost, I'm all for representation and I'm all for character growth, but it can almost feel lazy to do it just to mix things up. Like, I don't know, do something new with the character
Right.
that's not, you know, changing who they are at their core. You know what I mean?
And I understand, like, there's only so many bad guys you can knock out. There's only so many great adventures that you can go on. So many multiversal threats. I get it, and so it's probably this idea of the quick change is the fresh take on the story. But I think that's where similar to what we said with the gender and the race swap, make better characters. I think this is more make better stories. I understand the opposing side of that, which says, well, this is the story. The story is that you completely changed the moral guiding and the compass of this character. Now, what would they do when blah, blah, blah? But even in that, correct me where I'm wrong, but not many of these characters completely get defeated when they are evil, right? So, like, they're still the main character, which means if they were good and they went bad, we're still rooting for them. They're just sort of now an anti-hero. So they didn't really completely swap. It's more just like, can you follow the character who makes a couple bad choices? It's not really story development.
No, it's like,
Is this light driving you nuts behind
is
me?
it driving me nuts? No. Do I notice it? Kinda.
Stand by.
All right.
I'd rather have nothing than that thing keep going.
I think that's preferred.
Yeah, carry on.
It's gimmicky and it's not great storytelling usually. And I think that, you invented Elseworlds, you invented What If. Do that. And I know that, when I brought it up, it was about the costume changes, which seems like such a unimportant thing. And in the grand scheme of, telling these stories and translating them to the screen and the small screen and the big screen, it's not that big a deal. But it also just seems like, why would you do that though? It's like we
Yeah.
we like when we see what we know. You know what I mean? Like, There was a reason that one of the most exciting things in Deadpool and Wolverine was that Wolverine was in the yellow and blue and he had the mask. That was a big deal because in what
It's what we know.
three Wolverine movies and 7 or 8 X-Men movies, we had seen him in either regular clothes or the black leather. And so, even in which one was that? I think it was X-Men Apocalypse, when you see Wolverine run by briefly and he's in the giant metal helmet when he's Weapon X.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that was a cool moment because it's like, oh, we never get to see like these comic accurate like suits and stuff. So why that's such a small thing. Why change it?
Yeah.
Why they've worn these costumes, these iconic, colors and logos for so long. Why do you need to mess with it?
I think that's why we come back to movies and comics and TV shows, because they're familiar. They make us feel at home.
Mm-hmm.
And when you again, back to what I said before, like, name me a version or a variant of these things that you've introduced where we actually like it better. We really don't. You always come back to it. So, just sort of think about that as you're trying to team swap some of these heroes and villains. Like, if we're just going to come back to it and it's just a gimmick for the moment, maybe don't do it.
I fully agree, but faithful and wonderful listeners, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you think this stuff works, doesn't work? Should they do it? Does it even matter? Are we being petty? Should we shut up? We want to hear all of that.
Oh, it matters. It matters. Just like this plot synopsis.
It matters right here, but does it matter out here? Is the big question, I think.
Well, right here, we're going to do a plot synopsis for X2, X-Men United. And
I can't wait.
I'm going to make you wait. We're here to talk about something that plagues us all, and that is plaque psoriasis. And this is just your friendly reminder to floss your teeth.
If you keep going like this, I'm going to walk you through the WWJD colored bracelet and what all the colors mean.
Do you know what all the colors mean?
I do know what all the colors mean.
All right, let's skip that. Here's your plot synopsis. Cue foreboding music. Here we go. In a world where everyone hates mutants, even the mutants, one blue teleporting Catholic ninja wakes up and chooses violence. Nightcrawler bamfs his way into the White House like it's Assassin's Creed Vatican Edition, setting off a chain of events that forces the X-Men to do the unthinkable. Work with their dramatic ex, Helmet Daddy. While Logan is off in Canada playing a game of hide-and-seek with his memories, Jean Grey is off hearing voices again. And Professor X is just trying to run mutant Hogwarts where something bad doesn't happen every semester. The government's response to the mutant unrest, however, is giving William Stryker full access to Xavier's school. Because when has blindly trusting war criminals and authority ever gone wrong?
When indeed.
Said no X-Men comic ever. Naturally, it's up to the X-Men, Magneto, and the world's smokiest acrobat to stop the plan, rescue some kids, and save the day as Jean goes in full I am the storm and walks into a flood with the calm of someone who knows she's getting a trilogy. It's mutants, mayhem, and mild Catholic guilt in 2003's X-Men United. Because nothing says unity like betrayal. Dun, dun, dun.
Why was that dun 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 so sad?
Because
Yeah, nah, nah.
I wanted to love the ending, and as I'm standing there, I'm like, we almost stuck the landing.
I think we still stuck it.
But I don't know. We should argue about it.
We'll talk about it.
You want to argue about it?
Like we said.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like we said. Like he said, we're doing X2 X-Men United, which is another big ensemble movie. And I know that we've done the Avenger movies. I know we did Sin City, and those are big ensemble movies. But this one, directed by Bryan Singer, stars Hugh Jackman, Famke Janssen, Patrick Stewart, Halle Berry, James Marsden, Anna Paquin, Alan Cumming, Ian McKellen, Brian Cox, Rebecca Romaine, and Kelly Hugh. So that's a lot of people, and that's not even
Is that how you say
all of them.
Is that how you say the Mystique actress's last name?
Romaine, yeah.
Romaine? I always thought it was Romlin.
And I stuttered over it because at the time it was Rebecca Romaine Stamos, but she's...
Oh, yeah, she married Uncle Jesse.
But she's not married to Uncle Jesse anymore, so now it's just Rebecca
Not no
Romaine.
mo. All right, well, there's great things in this film.
There is
Great.
some really great things.
Not good. Great.
Great.
You kick it off.
All right. Number one, first thing, Nightcrawler. Number one. Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler, which also shout out to if you have the Peacock streaming app and you're not watching Alan Cumming host the show The Traitors, you are missing out. Go and fix it.
Really?
The Traitors is such a ridiculously fun show, and Alan Cumming is at his Alan Cummingiest, and it's great.
Interesting.
I love it. It's so fun.
I'll check that out.
But yeah, Nightcrawler's big reveal, in the beginning and honestly throughout the whole movie when Storm and Jean Grey get him in the church and when he's part of the team, towards the end of the movie and everything, it's great. Just everything with Nightcrawler is awesome.
The makeup is done so perfectly. Mm-hmm. And from a cinematography standpoint, that opening scene is shot all over the place. And it's hard to follow, and that ironically is the character. And they did a stellar job creating panic and intrigue. And while X-Men, the first movie, gave us a look into the world of the X-Men, I felt like that was a movie for movie's sake. This movie said, okay, now let's bring the comic to life. And they did it with the character of Nightcrawler.
Yes, I would agree 100% that they did that. And while we're on Nightcrawler, now I don't know if this is something that's in your bag. It's certainly not in mine. But did you like the teleportation effect, like the way that they did the smoke and the
Totally.
the Bamf thing?
I thought it was great.
Love it. Well, since we're talking about characters, Stryker, phenomenal villain.
Brian Cox is superb.
Great villain. He does a great job with it. He's compelling and interesting. He's also ruthless and lethal and crazy, but also I kind of see where he's coming from. And
he's a clear villain.
This evilness with what he does to his son, and he is such a well-rounded and interesting villain. And honestly, they've had Stryker in some of the other movies played by different actors in smaller parts, but this just is top tier. Top tier, definitely. With characters I have always loved, and I think that this is evident throughout all of the X-Men movies, but especially the original trilogy, is the relationship between Xavier and Magneto.
Yep.
Because the relationship between Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen is just so whimsical and fun and lovely that you see it kind of bleed through whenever they're on screen together, that these are two dear friends who are playing two dear friends who are at such odds with their belief systems, and it just is so apparent that there's more than just two actors reading a script when they're doing scenes together.
Did you catch the book that he was reading?
That's my next thing, The Once and Future King. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That was another great little nod.
At the beginning of the movie, Magneto's reading a book by T.H. White called The Once and Future King.
King Arthur.
And at the end of the movie, Xavier's talking about the same book to his students. Mm-hmm. And it's I actually picked it up for when I go on vacation next week. I'm gonna read through it and its follow-up called Merlin.
And also what precedes it is The Sword and the Stone.
Oh, does it?
Yes. So
what do you know?
You might want to get that as well. Read the whole.
Should probably do that.
Read the whole saga.
But yeah, it's about King Arthur. The adversary at the end is Lancelot, who was once his closest friend. So it's very meta, but it's also a phenomenal novel. So yeah, check that out, and it's very appropriate for Xavier and Magneto.
Well, and it's also very meta because part of the reason that he's reading The Once and Future King is because Ian McKellen played Arthur in the Once and Future King movie.
Oh, even better.
So that's also a little nod to like why he's reading it. It's like I was in this once.
Hey, Marvel, you're killing it.
You're killing it before the MCU. We talked about Nightcrawler. I love and this is direct from the comics, obviously, but I love the religious aspect of Nightcrawler, and that they did not shy away from it. They didn't trivialize it. They didn't. They also didn't make it into a gimmick. It just was a part of who he was. This devout Catholic, and how his belief in God, his belief in faith and prayer, really influenced his decisions and how he viewed the world.
Yeah.
And I think that was something really important that they also could have easily written out and chose to stay true to, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, they didn't apologize for it. They just sort of were like, no, this is the character, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Now, even though this was a sequel, I think that X2 is one of the movies that's on a list of few movies that are really, truly superior to the original and, better than the preceding movie.
Yes.
And I also think that it really set the groundwork for these superhero ensemble movies that we would get, in much of the future, even, from movies like The Losers all the way up through Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers and Justice League and all these things, without the setting, without the table setting of X2 kind of showing you how you could do it in a way where you're fair to all the characters, where they all work together, where where you have multiple stories being told. I think that without that groundwork, those movies would not be as successful or as enjoyable as they are without the effort that X-Men put in first.
I'd agree, and I'll take it a step further. One of the things that I have is that this is a clear sequel, meaning that you have to have watched the first one to get this. I feel like now, particularly with the MCU, they call them sequels, but they are standalone. And they do that because they know they're going to get new fans and they want to make them as accessible as possible. And so they sort of dumb down the fact that, like, no, you actually need to know what happened so you can understand. Even though they claim that they do, they really don't. But back here in 2003, it assumed that you saw the first one. And in fact, you need to have seen the first one. And it picks right up. It's literally like you can you can pop out the VHS of X-Men and pop in X2, and it'll just keep going story-wise, where they don't really do that anymore.
Right, and really, you could tie the two together with just saying, 6 months later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's especially true within the original trilogy there, is that that is one clear story that you need all of them to get the full story. And you're right, it doesn't do like what they do now, where it's like, you need this one, kind of. You could watch just this and be fine, but it would help to do this and that. And, they made no bones about the fact that, like, do you want the whole story? Then watch all of it. Otherwise, you're going to be very confused.
Right, like you can watch Homecoming, and then you could watch Far From Home, and yes, it makes sense, but you also have to remember there's other movies in between that, and I think that's sort of where they didn't have that going on here, and so it does feel very much like part two, and you needed part one, and I just appreciated that, because I feel like we've lost that now.
I agree 100%. Just a great, so we were talking about effects. I think that Mystique's transformation was always very cool. I like the way that they designed that, where it's like I don't even know how to describe it, where like it's these scales that like cover her to become the new person, and then they scale back to become her original form, and I think that's just a very cool effect.
Yeah, even when they were doing that in the tent scene, where she's changing between different female characters with Logan, It's just very unique.
It is. It's very different.
No other character really does that.
What exactly are you a professor of? Art? Yeah, love that. That's a
It was good.
fun little line. Now I want to save that one for the end. I think that I think that this is a very coherent and paced well movie, and I think they were able to put a lot of story into it without making it 3.5 hours long, and without
Yeah.
making it feel like, man, there's too much. Shave some of this down. There's way too much story in here. I didn't feel like there was too much story. I didn't feel like there were too many characters. I feel like there was, just the right amount of stuff in there, and they
Yeah.
they did it well. I think that Scott's reaction to Jean's death was a real
Terrible.
what? Really?
He's a terrible actor in an amazing scene, but he is awful.
Oh, I think that was a solid piece of grief acting in that scene.
Oh, let me tell you, I definitely cried at the scene, and I do have that scene in my good. It's an amazing scene. The loss of Jean is flawless. Marsden sucks.
Oh,
The tears came because of Logan and everybody else, and realizing, like, oh, I sort of know who she is, but I'm not a part of this grief, and I'm watching something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody else around them did not have the relationship the way that the original cast did.
right.
And the audience became, like, those other actors became the audience surrogate, where it's like, oh, I think I'm watching something I maybe shouldn't be, or I'm a part of something that I don't really connect to,
Right.
but I have to feel this because of how deeply they're feeling this. But it wasn't because of Marsden.
Oh, I disagree. I thought that was a pretty good scene for him.
Go ahead. Disagree with me again. See what happens.
All right. Are you threatening me with it, or are you gonna not let me have it? Because one is worse than the other.
Master has given Dobby a sock.
I like this scene at the end, the Oval Office scene. I think that's a pretty good scene. Done well.
It's terrifying,
Done well, shot
actually.
well, really unsettling. And now for the big thing that I feel like they did really well. I think that X2 really understood the mutant struggle more than any other movie in the X-Men universe.
How so?
There are 14 movies in the X-Men, universe. If you include Wolverine, the Deadpool movies, New Mutants, the New Class, and the OG, there are 14 movies that fall under the X-Men umbrella.
Yeah.
And I think that this one, especially when it comes to Iceman, really understands the struggle that, mutants are going through in this world. You have the government not only fearing them, but also wanting to eliminate them, keep them under control, register them. You have not only that, but you have the fear of the public, and you have fear from people's own loved ones. I think that, having not gone through it myself, but having, dear friends that have struggled with this type of thing, the conversation that Bobby has with his family seems very reminiscent of the queer community. And, have you tried not being a mutant? We just didn't know. Is it our fault? Should we have done something different? Be better than that. It freaks me out. We're going to call the police. That just seems very relatable to what people are going through, what people have gone through, probably in all, for all of time. But you see so much of it, more now because of, social media and people being much more open in public. And I think that, this movie did a really good job of focusing on us versus them mentality more than, Magneto wants to start a war. We need to stop them. This is what it's going to look like if there is a war. And if the human side is being led by a madman, this is what it's going to look like. And I think that I think that X2 just really understood that aspect of the X-Men in a way that the other movies in the universe just don't. do as well, and don't get, or
Yeah,
at least don't focus on the way this one does.
yeah, and unfortunately or fortunately, when you make statements like that, they are byproducts of their time. So this is an approach to a family's coming to terms with their different family member. And it felt very 2003's understanding of how that would be. I feel like as a society, we've come a long way when it comes to acceptance.
Maybe,
And I
but
want to be very careful.
But I think those stories are probably still happening.
Yes, and that's why I want to be careful about not just... I'm not saying they don't happen anymore, but it felt a little bit more like a 2000... Like, it didn't age as though it was just timeless. It felt like, yeah, that's how they probably would have handled that in 2003. Again, it's not right or wrong. I actually have that scene in Other, because to me, as I was watching it, I felt like... And again, I haven't had nearly as many experiences like that. Although I have done a lot of work with people in the LGBTQ community and, the other podcasts, having multiple conversations, I get the struggle, and I get that this is a good thumbprint on a lot of people's experience. Mm-hmm. But it also doesn't represent everybody. And I know you can't throw everything into a film, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was sort of like, yeah, but that's not everybody. But it had to do something, right? Like it had to identify some of the struggle. And that's where I would agree with you that, yes, of all the X-Men movies, of all the mutant sagas that we've put on film, this one painted that picture and the struggle of it probably the best. The scene as itself, I sort of struggled with, but to your point, you're right.
All right. But that is the. I have a couple of things in Other, but that is it for my.
That's it.
Really solid stuff.
I got 4 more.
All right. Hit it.
I love when the villains and the rogues of a previous story have to come together to fight a new villain.
Okay.
That is this story. But it's also Civil War, and it's Mission Impossible Fallout, and it's Dark Knight Rises, and it's Star Trek Into Darkness, and it's Two Towers, right? Like it's so many of these great sequel stories. Mm-hmm. But I love that this one's probably one of the earliest. And I love that it's done with these characters. And it's done not because that's just the repeated trope of a story, but it's done because it makes sense for this story.
I would agree with that.
There's a moment in every single X-Men movie where the powers get used for everyday problems. Where it showed up in this movie was Bobby chilling Logan's drink.
Yeah.
And I love that. I was just like, yeah, it's funny. And speaking of freezing things, I love when Professor X freezes everybody.
Oh, at the museum in the beginning there? Yeah, that's cool.
Yep, it shows up here. It shows up in Days of Future Past as well. I just love when that happens because it's so mutant. It's so X-Men. Whereas a lot of this stuff, you're like, okay, yeah, I could see that happening. But that's just like, yeah, that doesn't happen. That's very X-Men.
Except I hate when they push the one guy and he like stands there like he's like one of those like little clown things with the round bottom, Like just because he's frozen, you would either knock him over or he wouldn't move. He wouldn't just like sway like that. That was a weird choice.
Last good thing I have is as Mystique is searching on the computer, I hit pause. Mm-hmm. And boy, do you get a list of names.
Remy LeBeau is one.
You see Remy LeBeau. You see 2 Maximoffs. You see Silver Samurai, Weapon X, Marty Maddox, Multiple Man, Karma, Mirage, and Proteus.
Yep.
It's awesome. Like, they weren't trying to do the Easter eggs, but they were definitely saying, hey, if you're a fan, this is for you.
Always love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like, they do it now because there's YouTubers like us who are looking for this.
Right.
But, back in 2003, that wasn't a thing. And to have that level, particularly that list of in-depth, hey, we're doing you a solid, I appreciated it,
It's quite
20 years later.
It's quite a who's who of characters and name drops there. And we would see
Yeah,
a
for
lot of
sure.
them as the world would continue. We would start to see a lot of them show up.
Yeah. That's it for my good.
All right.
I've got 2 other.
I've got 4 other and then an anecdote.
Okay, I'll go first.
Go, hit it.
It's not bad, it's not good, but there are moments where Sir Ian McKellen slips in and out of accent, and it's very jarring to me. He throws hard R's where there shouldn't be. Or maybe where there should be. But he's got a British accent for most of the time that's not trying to be a British accent. So when he overdoes it, it's noticeable.
He is British.
I know, but Eric's not.
Yeah, but he doesn't hide his British accent.
That's what I'm saying. So the character should not have a British accent, but he does. Okay, I'll suspend the disbelief. So when he throws a hard R in there instead of an aw, it throws me off. And he does it at least 5 times in this movie.
Oh, I don't think I noticed that. I'll have to go back and look. Put an example.
Yeah, check it out right here.
Only when I read in the papers. I've had frequent visits from William Stryker. You remember him, don't you?
See?
Well, I'm not convinced. Let me tell you.
Well, color me stupid. The only other was the line where Logan is talking to Cyclops and says, "She did make a choice. It was you." I was just like, bro, that's salt in the wound. Like, I know you're trying to be helpful.
She made a choice. It was you, and now she's gone and can't choose anybody.
Now she's gone. Even though she chose you and not me, she's still dead. It was just like, yeah.
Yeah, read the room a little bit there. Read the room, Wolverine.
The director's niece wrote that line. That's it.
I have 2 that kind of go together. I kind of got into a little bit with Bobby's family, and even though we don't 100% agree on the scene, I think that it very much matches the world today. This idea of the other. We have the LGBTQ community, we have the trans community, immigrants, and I think that more so now than ever, people seem to be very afraid of the other. Something that's different, something that challenges worldviews or religious beliefs or societal understanding. And I think that this is more relevant today than it even was then. For at least that was what I kind of got from it. It feels to me like it's much more relevant now. Smoking in the museum is a little jarring. Now, it was a different time, but in the very beginning, Pyro, Iceman, and Rogue are all hanging out in the museum, and this guy is trying to get Pyro to give him a light.
It's 2003, man.
Right, but even in 2003, you're smoking in a museum. You're in a museum. They would never allow that kind of damage to be done to any of the artifacts or displays or electronics or whatever.
I was actually just talking to my kids.
That was just a weird scene.
Do you remember going to restaurants and them saying, "How many in your party?" And
Smoking
you go,
or non?
4. Smoking or non. And I had to explain that to my kids, and they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "No, it was a thing. It was a big thing."
It was definitely a thing.
And I remember being on the edge of the smoking section. I'm like, no, we want to be totally away. Give us that booth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember that.
Thank you for smoking.
When this came out in 2003, it was the battle of the sequels. The year this came out, it was up against Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It was up against Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Shrek 2, and The Matrix Reloaded. Those were all huge franchise sequels, hugely successful, popular movies, and what a time to be alive in the movies.
That's the anecdote?
No, that's not the anecdote.
Oh, okay.
I just think that that's interesting. No, my anecdote that went along with the Bobby conversation was, I know that when the X-Men were created, it was meant to be, about racism,
Yeah,
an
it's civil
allegory for
rights.
racism. Now it's definitely been adapted to, people that just feel othered and disenfranchised, cut out. And I think that that's great. But my only issue with it is that if you look at the mutants that we've come to know and love in these movies, who wouldn't think that's awesome?
What's awesome?
Like if my brother came to me and said, "Listen, I have magic ice powers, or I have magic fire powers, or I have claws that shoot through my hands, and you can do anything to me and my body will heal." Yeah, you do. Amazing. Let's go. It makes me think of the that scene in Shazam when they're like testing all of his powers and they're like having fun trying
Yeah.
different things. That's what I would want. That's the only thing I would want to do. Is like how much can you freeze? Can you freeze your whole body? Like let's play with this a little bit here, right? Like everybody's so weirded
I
out. Like,
guess.
oh my goodness, you froze a teacup. Like that's pretty cool. I'll never have a warm drink again. That's awesome. Did I just buy this soda from the store? Ice it up for me, baby. Come
But
on.
that's coming from the understanding that you're cool with difference. If everybody's kind of cool with it, then there is no struggle.
But this is a cool difference.
Sure, but that's because you think it's cool.
I don't know. It just
No, take the analogy all the way.
I
This
guess
is a
yeah.
cool skin tone. This is a cool gender. This is a cool orientation. Not to everybody.
All right, yeah, no, I guess that's true. It just
Well, pow.
feels like, yeah, I don't know.
Like I said,
All right, you're
I'm gonna have this wand for every episode.
you are somebody needs to take that away from you immediately.
Everybody's asleep right now. I think we should go to an ad.
Wait, I have one more thing.
You're still going?
I have one more thing. Calm down.
Carry on.
Calm down. The X-Men movies are very special for me.
Yes.
I have a very fond memory of seeing all of them with my dad, and so I don't have a huge history with X-Men in the comics. I didn't read a lot of X-Men. I didn't always care for the comics. So the movies for me, I am very forgiving of the X-Men movies because of the special place that they hold in my life. So I'm just saying that, like, these are, I feel like it's a very nostalgic, but I think it's very for the time. And I think it's a really special movie because of when it was released, what it was able to set up, and what it kind of says. So I think that that's a nice thing.
I don't disagree with you. There's a sponsor, and they have something to say. In a world of scentless heroes, one man left a mark and a smell. Introducing Bamf by Wagner. The only cologne that smells like mystery, faith, and brimstone. Crafted in the catacombs of Bavaria. Bottled in the shadows of regret. With top notes of holy water, black pepper, and teleportation-induced panic. Endorsed by no one, but extremely effective. What is that smell? It's disappearance.
Oh my god.
It's scripture.
It stinks.
It's Bamf. Bamf. For when she says, my type is morally conflicted circus Catholics. Available exclusively behind confessionals, under trench coats, and wherever teleportation is legal.
Well, I have to say that might be the very best one you've done so far.
Thank you.
I laughed.
Thank you. Now,
I laughed
okay.
out loud many times at it, and I was very impressed by the production value, and I enjoyed it very, very much. You've set the bar way super high.
So that was like a creativity dump. It all just happened very quickly, and it happened
It
around
stinks. Oh my god!
4:30 in the morning.
That's when all the best creativity happens.
Yeah, I'm usually up between 4 and 4:30 every day. And I was like, oh, I gotta come up with an ad, and it just sort of hit me. And so I'm sitting on the couch, and everybody else in my house is asleep. So I'm pulling the footage, and I'm making some of this stuff and all of that. And I wanted what's called a scratch track of the audio, so I could know where to put the images. And so I grabbed my phone and I just whispered the whole thing into my phone. And so I put it in, and then later on I was going to do the voiceover in the mic. So I'm doing all of this, and so I take the actual finished thing and I put it over, but I left the whisper in there, and it's killing me. I'm cracking up, and I was like, you should probably just leave it in there.
It was the right choice.
And then I thought maybe the whisper should talk back, and that's where the "it stinks" came from. And then by the end of it, it was like 10 in the morning. By the time I had gone and drove into work, and I was all over the place. But then by the time I came back to it, it was a couple hours later, and I was just like, I think I texted you. I think I said something to the effect of, "I've gone too far."
Yeah, it was something like that.
But here we are.
I've gone too far, yet here we are. Well, listen, I don't think it was far enough. I think there's
It was
more
not in
deep down
vain.
into. I gotta be honest. It was giving SNL short. Those SNL shorts they used to do.
Yeah.
I definitely was getting that feel for it. So,
But I don't know how many of our listeners know this, but when we give ads, one, they're not real.
as much as it would be amazing if every one of the products we've talked about were actual purchasable
Sponsoring the show?
products that were
That'd be
sponsoring
great.
us, I could retire and do this full time.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But because they're not, the other who's listening to the ad, so I gave this ad, Chris didn't know it until he heard
Right.
it. So what we're trying to do is make each other laugh with how stupid and ridiculous these things are. And so we're going to introduce a new segment on the show. We rate the entire movie on the Batman scale.
Correct.
But because we're trying to make each other laugh, we're going to start rating the ads on the Joker scale.
Love it.
And the Joker scale...
Just to be clear, the Joker scale is just the film Jokers, correct?
Yeah.
Right. It's because there's been a lot of people who have done the voices or played the Joker on TV and animation.
It's movie and one animation, because our Batman scale is movie and one animation.
Now I'll set. You give the rating and then I'll say my piece.
All right. So obviously the flawless, quintessential, millennial version of the Joker is the voice, the legend, the man, Mark Hamill.
Which is a movie Joker because Mask of the Phantasm, which had both Kevin Conroy and
Okay.
Mark Hamill, was released in theaters. So, being that those are both of our highest ratings of both the movie and the ad, that counts. It wasn't live action, but
Obviously, rest in peace, but Heath Ledger, great Joker. A good Joker is Jack Nicholson here. He gave us what it is.
he kind of set the bar.
He did set the bar. Cesar Romero is our so bad it's good. And just a terrible ad is Leto, because that's a terrible Joker. So, from now on, every ad will be rated. So we're sort of stepping it up here. We're pouring our hearts out
We are.
for all to see, but now we're going to get judged by each other. So,
Did we forget or intentionally leave out Joaquin Phoenix?
intentionally left out.
Okay, because
Elseworlds.
my feeling was it's not really a proper Batman version of Joker. So
Well, there's no Batman.
exactly. So I feel like the other ones fit very well in the worlds that they're in. So okay.
So, what would you rate said ad?
Oh, I'm gonna set you on an ego trip.
fire.
And this one's gonna get Mark Hamill one. This is.
Thank you very much.
Listen, what is this? Episode 19? And
Yeah.
out of 19 ads, including my own ads, this is, I think, our best ad as a as a unit. I think it is our
Maybe we'll go viral.
most creative. I think it's our most fun. I think it's the funniest one. I think it's definitely a deep cut. Now, do you want to explain the deep cut there, or do you want to just
Bamf?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right. Then
I tell you what, kids, go look it up.
If you know, you know. Look it up.
Go look it up. We're not, because we're a Christian podcast. There's some bad stuff in this movie. Would you like me to go first? Because I'm sure you don't have much.
I don't have much. I think what I have is substantial, but I don't have a lot. So you go for it.
Let's go in order of pettiness.
Oh, I have two petty things.
Yeah, one petty thing is you had Dr. Hank McCoy on the TV, and then a movie later it was played by Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah, it's also played by a different actor in the first one when you only see him in some kind of panel. Yeah.
It's like, look, either you're going to introduce him or you're not going to introduce him, and if you are, just keep it consistent.
Well, again, that was like with Mystique on the computers with the names. It was like just a little like, oh, yeah, we'll just throw this little Easter egg in without thought of, oh, we might use him if this is successful in a future installment, so maybe...
Yeah. The kill the mutants thing sort of took me out of the movie, because we're talking about Charles freaking Xavier here. If he wanted to kill the mutants, it wouldn't be with a high-pitched noise in everybody's ear that lasted for 10 minutes. It would just be... and that's it.
Basically, just shut down all consciousness. Same with that. Same with the kill all the humans.
Right. It's to build emotional tension, but like we're talking about the most powerful mutant here. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, that was I didn't have that down, but that makes sense.
That
now
bothers
that you bring
me.
it up.
I don't like the look of Wolverine here. He seems too clean. He seems...
especially his hair.
Yeah, it's too much. Well, now he's a super Hollywood star, and it just lacks the ruggedness and the brashness, which eventually they got to post X Origins. Because I feel like once we got Days of Future Past, we kind of
went back,
kind of figured out the
ruggedine.
Yeah,
the rugged vein.
But it took us a little while, and this one's just like, it's a little too Barbie. I didn't like it. Last thing, Jean knowing stuff so the plot can happen gets old real quick. It's like, oh, there's something happening. Oh, he's over here. Oh, they're doing that. She's just a plot device.
Well, again,
it's
that's
moving the story along, but it's like, does it always have to be Jean?
Right, but again, she's the only other than Xavier, she's the only telepath. So it's
right, but they don't have Charles do that.
But that's the same thing as time travel. It's it's one of those things where like it is definitely a MacGuffin that can help you get from one event to another, because you can,
and you do need it.
But you wrote, you not, they didn't for the movie, but you created a character with an ability that gives you the ability to jump story plots by just saying, I know this information because I can read minds, or I can see the future, or I can travel through time, or whatever. So it's hard to be mad at that when
I'm not furious.
That's how the character was designed,
Yeah, I'm not furious, but from a story unfolding perspective, it's like, oh, we're sort of stuck. What does Jean think we should do?
Okay,
that's all.
I don't like the Phoenix tease. I don't like any of the Phoenix references. One, because it's not how it's supposed to be done. Number one. Number two, and part of this is also because, because we are, reviewing comic book movies that, are not brand new and we don't know what happens. We've seen X-Men 3, so we know how the Phoenix story goes. And I'm sure that's coloring, because I don't like it, partly because I know what they end up doing with it. But I don't think it was even necessary for this story to even tease it. You know what I mean?
I didn't mind it, because I had to tap back into 15-year-old me going, Oh, it's the Thing. I know they're going to do the Thing, and I didn't,
I mean, I probably had the same reaction, but again, that's hard to separate, this retro review now of like knowing where they take it, what they do with it. It's like, no, because I know what's coming. I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Fair enough.
Now, two petty things I have, or things that don't really make one petty, one that doesn't make sense. I don't like Lady Deathstrike's design at all. Now
How
she
different
looks.
was she from the comic?
The fact that she's Asian is the only similarity.
Oh.
Like she is monstrous looking and very frightening looking. Now I think this worked for the X-Men universe that we're in. As far as the design with all the other characters. But I just didn't love that like her claws are just super long nails. So it's not exactly, what I wanted.
All right.
Why, when they go to visit Magneto in the prison, when Scott and Xavier go, why is Scott in uniform with his visor?
Just in case.
Yeah, but the whole idea, especially right now in the time period that we're in within the movie, like being a mutant is a big no-no. It's a bad thing. People are freaked out by it. So you're dressing in a uniform with these weird glasses. Like if I was on the lookout for people that were different because mutants were bad, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah, but where is he going? It's not like he's walking out in public.
They
went to the facility that has.
There, though. They have to get there. Plus, you have all those guards there. It's
Didn't
like
they take the jet?
Well, we're here to guard this one evil mutant. Who's to say that this guy, who's clearly dressed like a superhero, is not one of these dangerous mutants as well? You know what I mean? It just seemed counter to what they were trying to achieve here, and it was like an excuse to put them in the leather costume. It just was weird.
Well, he only had so many scenes, and the scenes he was in sucked. I hate Scott Summers.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of his, but it just was a weird choice.
Yep.
Now, Cyclops, speaking of, Cyclops could be a really interesting character, and they just kind of sideline him through most of this movie, and I wonder if part of that is...
Yes, they do.
That they didn't love James Marsden's acting either?
Well, that makes three of us.
The conversation with Jean in the campsite when she's like, girls flirt with the bad guy, they marry the good guy. And he's like, I could be a good guy. Well, okay, here's the problem with that. The good guys don't cheat with and try to elicit, people who are in committed relationships into having an affair. So you're already starting as not the good guy.
Do you know what would have come in handy if you wanted to skip over that?
A remote control?
Runpee.com.
Oh my God. I'm not saying it was a bad scene. I'm saying it was bad. I'm saying it was bad. It was odd writing because he should have more. He should have more self-awareness of the kind of person that he is, which is I'm willing to have an affair and then say I'm the good guy. You're not the hero in that story, though.
Dude can't even remember where he came from. What makes you think he's going to be able to pull this off?
I could have used more Stryker in future movies. I wish this isn't like a criticism, but I wish they hadn't killed Stryker because I would have loved to have seen him as the antagonist in future X-Men movies.
I could have used Brian Cox in X-Men Origins.
That's what I'm saying. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. That was just poor casting, but
like, what's his name?
Danny Houston.
Houston. Yeah, he's not bad. He's a good actor, but again, Brian Cox nailed it.
The bar had already been set, and so if this was the first time we were seeing Stryker, it would have been, oh yeah, that's fine.
That's one thing, but it's not.
No, I'm with that. We never talk about Bobby's family again. Like, it's this big emotional scene.
Good.
but we never addressed the fact that, like, your family ratted us out. You can never go home again.
Good.
You
They're
know,
mutant phobic. We have no time
they
for
are,
that.
but it's just odd that Rogan, Bobby, and Pyro don't address, or Wolverine don't address what happened in that house. You know what I mean? Just
Nope.
seems odd.
Remember that time you got shot in the head and I almost killed a cat?
Yep. Nobody wants to talk about it. Last thing I have is,
You've got more than I do.
well, again, some of this is just like, I was trying to be critical despite my fondness for this movie. I was
Your
trying to
deep
think with a
love here.
critical eye. These soldiers that work for Stryker seem pretty casual about experimenting on and unaliving a bunch of children. Pretty
Yeah.
casual about it. Like, no conflict whatsoever.
Yeah, but
Feels pretty dark.
once you've gone to Chuck E. Cheese once, you cross the line.
I guess it just, like, you get the motivation from Stryker. Like, Stryker explains his motivation, and you don't have to agree with it, and you can hate him for it. But it's like, okay, there's he's got this twisted reason where he might do these things, but like all these soldiers just are kind of blindly following and are like, I want you to murder all these kids as superpowers. Yeah, all right, I could do that.
Like the kid who's blinking the TV, like he's still sort of breathing.
No, they don't. They don't hurt any of the kids in the mansion, but they know that there's going to be experimentation, and that his end goal is to destroy the mutant.
Do they know that, or do we just know that?
Look at where you're working. I'm just saying, like, take a look at the environment you're in. Like, you have people
Sure,
there.
but you know what?
You have people
Steve
there
just
who
wants
are
to do a
clearly
job.
under duress. Look at what he did to his own son. Look at Jason Stryker. Like, come on. You are you that, like, ignorant?
Peter from accounting just wants to make a paycheck and go home. He doesn't care what he has to do.
I guess. It's like the guy who does the taxes for the Death Star. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know what they do, but I'm just here to punch in at 9 and leave at 5. That's my gig,
it.
man.
That's it.
I guess.
And is that it?
That's gonna wrap it up.
There's some deeply spiritual things about this film.
You know what? Can I tell you a very quick story before we get into the spiritual things?
Why not?
Wow. I don't feel seen right now by you, sir.
I'm seeing you. I'm saying, why not? Let's dive into
I
it.
used this movie many times in youth group settings as a devotional, specifically the scene between Storm and Nightcrawler about anger and faith and fear and helping
Is
you
that your
survive.
spiritual content?
It's an adult version of it, but yes, it is.
Oh my
But it's just really funny to me that when I was looking at I was like, the first thing I thought was like, man, how many times did I show this clip? And like,
It's
feels
funny.
so cool that, like, you can find Jesus in comic book movies with blue guys and cursing and super violence.
It's
And
funny. I got
almost
to that
naked blue
point
chicks.
in the movie, and I was like, Chris is going to pick this. I should keep watching. See if I can find something else.
It wasn't that it was the low hanging fruit. It's just that I have
But
a long.
it is low hanging.
It is, but it's not. That wasn't the only reason. I have a long standing history with this scene.
So, set it up.
Oh, I don't want to be first.
Too late. You're halfway in.
All right. Well, in the aforementioned scene, Storm and Nightcrawler are speaking about how Storm just has this anger against the world, and she says, sometimes anger can help you to survive. And Nightcrawler being, despite looking so, Storm can blend in, Nightcrawler clearly cannot. And despite that, says faith can also help you survive. So helping her see the world differently, and since I first saw that movie, that's something that always stuck out to me. It's so easy to be angry at the things around us in order to survive. When we have things happen to us that we deem unfair or that hurt us, and they may very well be, whether it's, losing a job, losing someone you care about, a breakup, a death, a financial, ordeal, whatever it may be, it can be so easy to fall into just being angry to not have to deal with it. But what anger does is cut you off. Anger only hurts the person holding it. I love the analogy that says anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You know what I mean? The anger is really only doing damage to who you are. And I feel like where anger cuts you off from people, faith allows you to embrace other people. Because if you truly are embracing faith in Jesus and following how he calls us to live, let the little children come. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Let's feed these people who are clearly hungry. It's meeting people's needs. It's embracing people where they are for who they are and what they are, and loving them in spite of whatever they may be, whatever they may have done, whoever they are. And I think that that's where anger can be a catalyst to finding faith. And it should be. Anger shouldn't be the end result, but being angry should push you to find something deeper. And hopefully that something deeper is faith in something that can help you embrace the world around you, embrace your circumstance, and use it, as opposed to just cutting yourself off from it.
Yeah, it's the bridge. It's not the destination.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Thanks. I can tell you that it wasn't even that deep when I did it in youth group 20 years ago.
You've matured.
I have.
Alrighty. As we say on this show, mine was very different.
Well, you forced it to be different.
I have to make it different, which I'm not just trying to be like, oh, that's the low-hanging fruit. Let's get esoteric. But I try to take these and like, okay, there are the themes that they throw out there to make the spiritually sensitive aware.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's great.
Here's how Magneto ties into the Rapture.
Yeah, for somebody like where I am, where I've been on this faith journey for, over 30 years now, I try to just push myself and say, okay, yes, that is true, and that's not to be dismissed, but where is God calling you deeper?
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that's where this one came through. So chaos is erupting in the X Mansion, and like we said, Trevor is just trying to do his job.
We're talking when the soldiers are invading.
Yeah, we're just trying to kill some kids and then get home by 5.
Dinner's waiting on the table. Got to walk the dog,
Colossus turns to Wolverine and says, I can help you. And Wolverine responds with just 2 words. He says, help them.
Mm.
And I think it's a natural offer that when you're in the thick of a fight, like our instinct is to rush to the people who are fighting's side. But Wolverine is not pointing to himself. He's pointing to the vulnerable. He's pointing to the unprotected. He's pointing to the ones who can't fight for themselves. And I think there's something deeply spiritual in that exchange. This is where my mind went.
Protecting the weak instead of facing the enemy.
Well, yes. And I think that that's a part of it. But I think there's this shadow side to helping that, I can't read into it, and I don't want to just put this on the character of Colossus, but sometimes we try to position ourselves next to the strongest voice in the room, next to the person who's doing the heroic thing, the leader, the one who's up front, the person who looks like they're doing the most. And that's a good thing, but it becomes problematic if we're doing it to seek attention and we're ignoring the ones who actually could use our help. And we're, if we're seeking attention that comes with the service, that's not true service, because now what we're doing is we're orbiting the spotlight. And instead, I think the call, like you said, is to gravitate towards the hurting and the needful, towards the ones in the shadows. And sometimes the most Christian thing you can do, the thing that most looks like Jesus, isn't standing next to the hero, but it's noticing the one who's been forgotten. And there's this verse in Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself." But this is where I think it takes it to the next level. "Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but to the interests of others." Jesus didn't serve the powerful or the visibly overwhelmed. He washed the feet of his friends. He touched the untouchable. He went where nobody went. He did what nobody did, and he said what nobody said. And he said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you're doing for me." And so it was a nice check for me in ministry, for me as a dad, for me as a friend, me as a podcast host. Like, am I doing things with the right motive? Yeah, sure. There's service that needs to get done, and there are gifts that I've been given that I can serve. Are you doing it with the right intention, and are you doing it at the cost of somebody who could actually use your help? Wolverine didn't need the backup. The kids needed the rescue. And so it's a good reminder and a good question I think we can ask ourselves: who can I help and who needs it the most?
That's really good. It's really good. And I forgot that that really is such a cool scene. And there's a lot more to a six words of a script.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
cool.
the line always stuck out to me. Even the first time I saw it, I was like, "Ooh, that's saying something," but I don't think I caught it in the moment the way I caught it now. Funny, like, you had your same scene, and then you came with it to a totally different perspective, but a deeper perspective. The line's always stuck with me, but now I see it totally differently. And I think it's just a good reminder for us as we're following Jesus, as we're looking to serve people. Do it with the right intention, but do it where it's going to make the most impact.
Absolutely. Well, I want to absolutely rate this movie.
Well,
Do you want to?
you can't.
Do you want to kick us up for the love
Expelliarmus.
of God?
I will rate this first. I just diswanded you. This is a great movie.
It is.
And I'm torn. I'm really torn, but I got to go with my gut. It's a Keaton. It's a great movie. It still holds up. You can watch it by yourself. You can watch it with a crew. You can watch it no matter where you are in the X-Men order. It's still great. It gave us Nightcrawler. And the reason I love it and the reason I'm so hyped about it is because it has so many of the characters in this movie that were introduced that are going to show up now in the MCU, in Doomsday. And so it just got me hyped, remembering how good it was, and then just saying, no, they're going to show up again, and there's a reason, which I have a fan theory about, which I'll tell you later.
Oh, jeez. No, it's like we didn't have a conversation 2 episodes ago about what happens with fan theories.
Expelliarmus, and now you can give your rating. Now you've been wanded.
Yeah.
I know what you gave it because you're nostalgic.
Listen, I said that these are very special movies for me, and
Yeah.
not only that, though, listen, I know that it has its flaws, and I know that there are some issues with the writing. I know that there are some issues with, how they introduce Phoenix and, how they handle characters like Cyclops, and I understand that. But at the same time, I don't think this is a bad watch in the
Not at all.
slightest. For me, this is a Conroy. I'm not saying that it's flawless, that it's a flawless
But you are.
movie, but my opinion of it is that it is a flawless watch, if that makes sense.
It doesn't, but I'll give it to you.
Okay, let me explain why it makes sense.
It's not a flawless movie, but it's a flawless watch.
Yeah, so I think that if you look at the movie with a critical eye, you're gonna find problems with, the writing or the acting or the effects or whatever. But I think if you sit down and you just watch it as a movie and enjoy it, It is a flawless watch. There's nothing so glaring that it takes you out of the movie. There's nothing so egregious that it makes you say, I have to skip this scene every time. Or every time I watch this, I'm going to have to complain about A, B, or C. I think you can enjoy it from beginning to end for exactly what it is. And to me, that's a flawless watch, even
This
if it's
is
not
egregious.
a flawless movie. So that's where I'm at with it.
All right.
And I'll
give
stand
it
I'll
to you.
stand by it. Oddly enough, it's only
Will it be your last stand?
it will. That is my last stand. And oddly enough, it's only my second favorite of the X-Men movies.
Your first being?
Well, my first being Days of Future Past. I think that is the peak X-Men movie.
I'm sorry, but when you mix mutants and Marty McFly, you can't go wrong.
That's exactly it. It's got all the MacGuffins. You got the telepathy and you got the time travel. And again, it's one of those things where, like, are there things in that don't exactly make sense?
Yeah.
Like Kitty Pryde with the sending his brain through time. Why is she doing it? That doesn't make 100% sense, but you know what? I'm here for it. I'm here for it 100%.
Well, I'm not here much longer. Let's get out of here. What do you guys think of this episode? Leave us a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. And make sure you subscribe. Hit that like button. So that way you stay up to date every time we post something, every time a new episode drops. That way you can share in the love.
Smash that like button. Smash
it.
I see other YouTubers say things like smash that like button. I don't exactly know what that means, but it seems to help them. So do it.
Bang.
Don't break your phone or your computer or whatever it is you're watching this on, but,
Yeah, but do that.
Are you ready to sail out of here? To
Sail
Quinjet
away.
out of here?
Come sail away.
Come sail away with me. That's a great song. So, listen, as we wrap up, thank you for listening. And remember, kids, if someone is going to trick your brain into thinking that you're a 6-year-old girl for the rest of your life, at least have someone who can braid your hair.
All right, you ready for this theory?
All right, make it quick.
Okay, I noticed something in this movie, and because these characters are going to show up in Doomsday, it's something that we have to point out. So you realize that what we're setting up right now is two factions, and we're going to have to fight. And the logical question is, who's going to end up on each side? I think that a key moment and a key plot point of Doomsday is going to be that Eric betrays everybody. Because as I'm watching X2, I'm like, he did it again. And then I started looking through all the other X-Men movies, and I'm like, it's literally the only thing he does. He starts on one side and betrays them. He does it in X-Men. He does it in X2. He does it in X3. Days of Future Past. He does it in First Class. He does it in Apocalypse. He does it all the time.
He does kind of have a habit of...
It's the only thing he
He's
does.
got a nasty habit of doing that.
So you don't bring Sir Ian McKellen back not to betray. I'm going on record right now.
All right.
I think it's going to happen.
I think that's... I mean, honestly, more than anything else, more than any other announcements about this movie, more than anything else that might happen in this movie, I am here solely to see Nightcrawler again.
That way he can go, Bamf!